The mutants of Krakoa face danger and upheaval on all sides, but perhaps their real ultimate end will come not from their own realm, but from another. What'll happen next? Well, let's hop into the pages of X-Men Before the Fall, Heralds of Apocalypse, issue number 1, a brand new special one-shot courtesy of Al Ewing, and find out what happens next together, shall we? So then, as we join this issue, we are back in Amenth, the demon realm that once did battle with the ancient mutant society of Okara. It's here we are reintroduced to Apocalypse, who, man, you know what, I really gotta take my hat off to the restraint to the X family of writers for actually leaving him here at the end of X of Swords. But moreover than that, N. Sabanur actually seems to be living up to his character development from the early Hickman years. He is a man of peace now. In fact, little demon guys from all around come to hear the Great One's teachings, all seemingly with variations on the same question, mainly what is strength, and to hear Apocalypse tell it strength is survival. You need to be strong in order to survive, and Apocalypse only ever wanted mutant kind to survive. It's here too we're reintroduced to Genesis, Apocalypse's long-lost wife, who has seemingly finished her great campaign against the demons and the summoners, and now she readies herself for another war. A war back on Earth. Unfortunately for her, she can't actually make it back to Earthrealm unless Apocalypse opens a doorway, which he refuses to do, leading to a big old fight between husband and wife. Well, actually, they don't think of it as a fight in their own weird warrior culture. They see this as a high-minded debate. Basically, they've taken the whole might makes right mentality and turned it up to 11, but the whole issue isn't just these two fighting. We actually get treated to several flashbacks, detailing how Okara, once an amazing mutant paradise, was ultimately split in two, Krakoa and Arakko. It seems that even back in those ancient times, Apocalypse thought that he could actually leave his warmongering ways behind, that the peace that mutant kind had built in this place would last forever. That's why he ended up naming his 4 children what he did: war, death, famine, pestilence. Not because he loved those things so much, but as reminders of what him and his society had moved beyond. Unfortunately, even back then though, as we discover, him and his wife Genesis had two very different ideas regarding Okara's future. You see, Genesis never believed that this peace would last. She believed that peace was always fleeting and something that you needed to fight and kill in order to defend. And I guess when we stop and think about it, Genesis was correct. A war would end up breaking up between the mutants of Okara, the demons of Amenth, and eventually the war would only come to a close when Genesis herself put on the gold mask of Annihilation. Though, as we learn through another flashback, Genesis actually had the opportunity to end the war earlier if only she was willing to strike a deal with the gold mask of Annihilation. She didn't, though, deciding that she would much rather prove herself to be the great legendary warrior she always felt herself to be, and so the battle continued. Hell, the gold mask of Annihilation even tries to spin it, saying that this war is always what Genesis wanted deep down inside. It made her children legends, and in many ways helped her secure her position as the true power behind Okara and the ancient mutant peoples. Of course, when Apocalypse hears about all of this, he's royally pissed, and the tide of their battle ends up turning. As Genesis so eloquently puts it, in their 1,000 years of courtship, she was always the warrior, the fighter in the relationship, while Apocalypse himself was always the sage, the philosopher. Now, I know what you're probably thinking to yourself, well, most of this is just old news left over from X of Swords. What new stuff do we have to look forward here? What exactly set Genesis off? Why does she want to conquer Earth now? Well, you'll remember that her, Apocalypse, and the 4 Horsemen decided to stay behind in Amenth and lock the portal behind them so that they could continue their battle against the demons and the summoners. Well, guess what? Turns out after all this time, she actually won. Genesis and her armies killed the demonic hordes, laid waste to the White Blade, and even managed to enslave the rest of the summoners that they didn't kill, though one of the summoners is quick to try and turn the tables on Genesis by saying, man, you know, if only Tarn the Uncaring could see us now. Apparently Genesis and Tarn were old rivals, and Genesis had jumped to the conclusion that he must have died, only for it to be revealed that actually he's totally alive and doing quite well on Arrakko on Mars right now. Yes, that's right, just because the events of Amenth were closed off from the rest of Krakoa and mutant kind on the main Earth, that still doesn't mean that people on Amenth weren't checking in on what was going on with the rest of mutant kind. And perhaps the biggest offender of this is actually Apocalypse himself. He ends up getting a major dime dropped on him by one of those Coven of Akaba witches who work for Orchis. You see, Marianna Stern basically tells everyone in Amenth that their sacrifice, their war, everything they did since the end of X of Swords ultimately didn't matter because Arrakko and Krakoa didn't stay together. together. The old dream of Okara was not recognized because Krakoa and Arrakko didn't stay together. They're just kind of, separate but equal now in different parts of the universe. And well, this turned out to be just a big enough slap to the ego that Genesis decides she wants to continue marching her armies back to Earth and putting right everything that she sees as going wrong. Of course, in order to do that, she still needs to make it through her husband Apocalypse, who pulls out all the stops trying to defeat her, even growing 4 extra arms just for good measure. Naturally, Apocalypse still can't shake the feeling that his wife Genesis may be under the sway of the gold mask of Annihilation. She's not wearing it anymore, but she's still carrying it around on a staff, though, which, isn't exactly a good sign. Now, all throughout this issue, too, Apocalypse has talked about the nature of his one true name. You'll remember that he had actually started using a brand new, undescribable mutant name early on in the Hickman years. Well, it's in this issue he explains it in greater detail. He says that he always enjoyed the name Apocalypse because of its finality, but perhaps that name too was ultimately corrupted and changed by time itself. In reality, his true name is something closer to Revelation, because he is ultimately the Revelator, one who reveals the true will of God, and perhaps everything that's happening with Krakoa and Arrakko and the Fall, perhaps that too is part of some greater cosmic plan. After all, as Apocalypse explained to his little demon buddy there, strength is all part of survival, and if mutant kind is going to survive what is coming, they need to be strong, they need to be united, and maybe only Genesis is the person to do it. And so, in the end, Apocalypse does allow Genesis to pass, but not before showing us that he has 3 Okaran seeds, basically the grand culmination of ancient mutant magic. He uses one to open a portal back to Earth, he gives the other one to his wife, and keeps the third, before eventually wandering back to Amenth. Whatever road Genesis is walking, it's a road she's going to have to walk alone. And as far as Revelation himself goes, he's just gonna keep on teaching and preaching to anyone who will listen. And so that was X-Men Before the Fall, Heralds of Apocalypse issue number 1, everybody, and I gotta say, Al Ewing really does make this continuation of what Hickman was doing with Apocalypse and his family seem effortless. Genesis and Amenth and Okara and all that other stuff that was created early on in the Hickman years was gone just long enough for me to absolutely forget about it. But I suppose if this truly is the fall of X and the fall of Krakoa, it only makes sense for this problem that the mutants kicked down the road to end up coming back and biting them in the ass in a major way, or maybe also being the thing that saves them. I'm really glad Ewing too also decided to not only keep but continue to explore Apocalypse's evolution as a character into more of a pacifist wise man. It would have been really wasteful in my mind to just reset all of that and have him return to his more traditional role as a villain, but thankfully they didn't do that. Overall, I think I'd give this one a very well-deserved 8.5 out of 10, and I can't wait to see what the rest of Before the Fall has to offer. Hey there everyone, it's your pal Cape Joel again, and if you're seeing my face right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, and I'll always be grateful for that. Retention helps in this crazy YouTube game, and so does becoming a patron. If you head on down to the description, you can find a link to my Patreon page. Recently just redid all the tiers, a lot of cool stuff offering up there, exclusive commentaries, exclusive polls, behind the scenes concept art for Capes and Quest, that's the brand new D&D show I've started soon. Never been a better time to become a patron. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month and help the channel grow and, help me continue to deliver content like what you just saw. So I want to thank you all, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.